Morning, everyone. Vama, I'm alcoholic.
Wow.
For me, it's an absolute miracle that I'm sitting here 1 year later. It's been an incredible journey. I remember getting 2 treatments. I'm just going to start at the end a little bit. I remember getting 2 treatments and thinking I'm not going to... and thinking I'm not going to last. This place is not for me. Couldn't identify, couldn't relate. But at the same time, I was so desperate to find a different way of life. I was tired of doing the things I was doing, waking up and chasing the same things I was chasing. I was just tired of living the life I was living. I knew something needed to change, but I didn't know what. So it's just, for me, it's a miracle that I'm sitting here a year later. Just to start at the beginning, so I was born in Durbs. I grew up in Margate for the very early part of my years, till I was like 7, 8 or so. Then from there, I moved to East London, where I lived with my aunt for a year, and then my dad and my sister and my mom came and joined me that side. Started school. The earliest thing I can remember from school is that I always loved doing my own thing. I was a very self-willed person. If someone told me I needed to study hard, I'd rather go play outside. If mom and dad told me I needed to be home before the lights, before it got dark, I'd stay out until it got dark. I was always pushing the boundaries from a very young age. And, never following rules. Rules were never my thing. I always wanted to go against the grain, always wanted to do my own thing, and always wanted to be with my friends, school, things that my family and my parents found important weren't important to me. It was always my way or no way. And I think from a very young age, I was very entitled. At the time, I didn't know these things. I was very entitled. I was very spoiled. I was very selfish. I never ever thought about how I made other people feel, or what I did to other people. I just always carried on with my own thing, and that's pretty much how I lived throughout my whole primary school. And then coming into high school, I was very sports driven. I remember grade 8 and grade 9 for majority of the year, because at the time I was lucky to kind of just get school, the academic side of it. So I never really used to take a bag to school. I just used to take my sports kit, and that's all I really cared about. So my dad always used to ask me, "Why aren't you taking a bag to school?" Like, nah, I don't need it today. But that caught up with me very quickly in my senior years. Like I said, I was very sports driven. So in the early part, I'm an alcoholic who gets obsessed. If I catch on to an idea, I get very obsessed with it. I have to work at it. It's nothing but that. It's the only thing I think about. It's the only thing I do. Like my whole world revolves around that one idea once I catch on. And in high school, I played rugby in grade 8 and grade 9, rugby, hockey, and cricket. And in grade 10, I was a small grade 10, so rugby wasn't an option. I didn't see that as a viable option, because everyone around me was growing to be bigger and stronger, and I wasn't. It was just something that wasn't in my future. So I saw that it was going to be too hard to play first team, and too much hard work for me to follow that path. So I decided to play hockey and cricket. And I got great advice from my dad that if I played hockey, it would help with my cricket, and it really did. 16, 17, played first team hockey and cricket. Again, very obsessed. I'd wake up 4 or 5 in the morning, go for jogs, after school, straight to practice, after practice, go run. It was all very... I tried to be very focused on what I was trying to do. And when I was 17, I was lucky enough to make the SA Cricket Academy side. And before I even got the chance to play a game, is when I got my first injury. I had tendons in my foot, and I wasn't able to run. And, being obsessed with something and not being able to do it was such a big setback to me. And this is where it led me to pick up for the first time and to start drinking for the first time. In the build up to all of this, I'd always not drank to get drunk. I'd always taken sips from my mom's alcohol. Like, oh, can I taste this? And she'd always give me some. But I'd never been drunk before. But when I got that injury was the first time that led me to pick up, and was kind of my road to using and going down the road of addiction. For me, I remember that I wasn't able to play sports for a good eight months of the year, and not playing sports and not being interested in school. For me, I felt like I only had one direction. And one day, me and a bunch of mates got together, and we smoked weed for the first time. And I'll never ever forget that feeling. It felt like everything that had been told to me about, if you do this, you're going to die, you're going to ruin your life. All of that was a lie. It felt like I'd found something that, kind of helped me release all my inhibition, wasn't nervous around people anymore, was able to, just get on with it. And that's, that feeling, like just thinking about it now, it just takes me all the way back there. I remember waking up the next day and thinking that was the greatest day of my life. I had slept 18 hours. I mean, I got home that night, still high, obviously. Ate like 3 bowls of food. My mom was, "What's wrong with you?" And I was always told, "No, I'm a grown boy, I need to eat." That was kind of my excuse for it. And I remember getting to school that day and saying to my mates, "We have to do that again." And this is kind of where the road leads down to all my picking up. I mean, all the substances and everything that I've ever picked up has always been a very well planned system. I mean, I remember my first time getting drunk. Me and a bunch of mates went to Mazeppa Bay, which is in the Transkei. No parents around. A bottle of straw 80 gets pulled out, and that was that. First time getting drunk was the same feeling that I had from the first time I smoked. Also, like, inhibitions gone, everything was so much better, so much more fun, able to communicate, talk, have fun with the people around me, talk to strangers, kind of be the life of the party. And I'm not sure if I was the life of the party or people were laughing at me or with me, but all I know is that it was a great time. And that kind of led to that. And coming into my matric year, I'd really lost interest in school, and I was able to play sports again and get involved in that side of my life. But obviously, having picked up and having that side of my life open up, it was never the same. School, I lost interest in big time. Failed my matric year simply because I didn't apply myself. I didn't care. I wasn't interested in school. I bunked a lot of school. And I'd lie to my dad so much about it. My dad was always the enforcer of the rules in the house. He was always the one to tell me and my sister what to do and how to do it. My mom was the one who was the more loving and caring and the enabler, if I could call it that, of my life. She was the one who was more comforting. You don't want to go to school, it's okay, you can stay at home. My dad didn't stick around for that shit. You wake up, go to school, you take care of what you need to take care of. And after I failed my matric year, highly disappointed. It's the first time I see my dad cry. And something had to change from that point. That's the first time I think I realized what kind of effect I was having on my family and the things I was doing, what they were doing to the people around me. And 6 months later, I was able to do rewrites, passed those pretty well. I was able to go to varsity the year after, and for me, that freedom kind of awoke. That freedom, I took advantage of that freedom. Just to put it simply, I went straight back into old habits, started picking up and using again. And that first year of varsity was a disaster. I mean, I think I must have went to 4 lectures, maybe, in the 9 months of the year that I was there. Just partying and, going out with mates and doing what I needed to do. I had no one to tell me to take care of my responsibilities, and that's just the way I wanted it. It was absolutely perfectly. It worked out so perfectly for me, but, obviously not going to lectures means I'm not going to pass anything. And that's what happened. I failed that year again. I had to move back. That year of varsity, I went to PE for that year, and then I had to move back. back to East London to my family home. Very disappointed, tail between my legs. Everyone in the family asking me what happened. Me making up lies, oh, it was hard, this and that, making up excuses. Never ever telling anyone the actual truth of what went on and what I was actually doing with my time and how I was spending my time. And spent the rest of that year at home. The year after, spent at home as well. That December, my mom passed away, and that's when my using really took it downhill. I didn't really care about how my family felt. I didn't care that my dad had lost a husband or my sister had also lost a mom. I mean, my dad had lost a wife, sorry, and my sister had lost a mom. Like it really was all about me. I was very selfish around that time. Around that time of period of my life, I used pretty much every day at this stage. It was no more a weekend thing. It was an everyday thing now. I was always out with my family. My friends. I was pretty much doing exactly what I wanted to do, and not worrying about the consequences at all. Every day my dad would say to me, you need to do something with your life. You need to change your life. You need to, finding some sort of ways to try and encourage me, and that never helped. My dad sent me to psychologists and psychiatrists and all of that. I didn't trust them. My experience of a psychologist or psychiatrist was, I went to one. She asked my dad to step out the room. I tried to get very honest with her, obviously telling her half truth as well. And the moment that meeting was done, she called my dad back into the room and told my dad exactly what I just told him. So that was my first experience of that. And I think from that point forward, I knew not to trust those people, or call them those people now, but I just never trusted that process. And my dad, my aunt, which is my dad's sister, everyone was always trying to get me to get on the right path, and it never ever worked out that way. And after a year and a half or so staying at home, my dad was really on my case about what I'm going to do, and I had this passion and love for music, so I knew I wanted to do something along those lines. And I was lucky enough to have a friend who had studied at Cape Audio College, and so I did the same thing. I went and studied sound engineering at Cape Audio, and there I'd really found my niche. It was something that I was passionate about. Waking up and going to classes wasn't a chore anymore. It was something I wanted to do. Obviously, still missing the odd ones here and there, but it was something that I was very passionate about and something that I really wanted to follow. And this 4.5 years in Cape Town for me are kind of a blur. It still boggles me how I got my degree after all that time. The degree is 4 years, mind you. I spent 4.5 because I had to redo my law module, because obviously I was failing and not applying myself. But Cape Town for me was just festivals, clubs, and good times. There was so much drinking and using that went on in that time of my life. My memory of it is very blurred. I remember like parts of it, but I don't think I remember the full story of it or what actually went on. The way I remember Cape Town is it all seemed like one year to me. Those 4 years seemed like one year. And I eventually got through that, got my degree in sound engineering. And again, I'm in life, not really sure of what I want to do. I got this degree, but I don't know how to use it now. And I started DJing, and that second half of that year of DJing, it was very slow going. I was trying to make a name for myself and all that, not making money, and my dad was tired of supporting me. So I moved back to East London, and I think this stage of my life is when my geographical started, is when I started moving around a lot. You can't name a town in the Eastern Cape that I haven't lived in. I've lived in Port Alfred, East London, Grahamstown, PE. I've lived in so many places in the Eastern Cape, and I don't think in any of those periods it was longer than 8 months or 9 months at a time. And every time I'd move somewhere, it would always be, oh, this is a fresh start, time for me to do something great with my life. And I'd find myself 6-7 months later phoning my dad, asking for help, wanting to move back home because I'm tired of living the way I'm living. And it just seems like nothing's working for me. And, I think in my whole life, I've never fully applied myself. I've always applied myself 50%, just enough to get through. And the cracks are really starting to show at this point. I remember, a couple of years before lockdown happened, I moved to PE, and PE was great. I knew a lot of people there. It was easy to get my substance of choice. Everything was easy in PE. And through this whole time, my dad was still supporting me. My dad was paying for my rent. My dad was paying for my groceries. Any money that I did make through DJing was spent on me and me alone. And when I say that, I mean drugs and alcohol. I don't, every time I used to come home for Christmas, I had nothing to show for what I'd been through during the year. And every time I'd come home, my dad would be like, "Oh, you look sick, my son. What's wrong with you?" And this led me to not seeing my family for a couple of years as well. After all those Christmas visits and getting so much flack from the family, I just stopped visiting them because it's too much hard work to answer all these questions and to try and give people a direction of what I'm doing and where I'm heading and this and that and so forth. I just got sick of that, and this led to me not being there for my sister. Something that I was very disappointed in was not being there for my sister's graduation. She had always been there for things I had achieved in my life, and the one thing I couldn't do was be there for my sister's graduation. And at the time, I was living in Grahamstown, so she went to PE for varsity, so I couldn't even make an hour and a half trip to be there for my sister. And I remember that weekend so clearly because there was a party going on in Grahamstown, and I would much rather sit and drink with my friends than be responsible and see my family. I didn't go there because I knew cousins were going to be there, aunts were going to be there, my dad was going to be there, and I immediately turned it into something about myself. I remember phoning my sister and lying about it, telling her that I couldn't make it. Well, I could have made the trip. And yeah, this is my road to treatment, and lockdown for me was the perfect storm. It was absolutely perfect. I didn't have to go anywhere. I could phone my dealer and have everything delivered to me. Alcohol could be delivered to me. And during lockdown, I was still living in PE. I was living with a friend of mine. Everything was delivered. I don't think we ever left the house. We spent a lot of time in the studio thinking we were productive, but looking back at that year and a half of my life, I really don't have much to show for it. Not music-wise, not career-wise, not anything-wise. I was living in such a delusion that I was doing great things for my career, but that definitely wasn't the case because, like I said, I really don't have anything to show for that time period in my life. And after that year and a half, lockdown started easing up, and at this point, me and my friend had become so toxic for each other. It was just one bad apple supporting another. If he was keen to drink, I was keen to drink. If he wasn't keen to drink, I'd make him keen to drink, and vice versa, and use and pick up. And it was just a big snowball effect. And towards the end of that, I saw that this was heading nowhere, so I decided that I was going to move to Joburg. Go live with my sister, new life, new starts, time to be serious about my career, time to be serious about the things that I want to do. And moving to Joburg, I got a lot of job opportunities. A lot of clubs wanted me to come be the sound engineer, be the sound tech for them. I had a couple of festivals lined up, all having, I'm ready to have a great start and a new start to life. And, true to my nature, I'm always good off the starting blocks. Everything's always great at the beginning, always excited and ready to do this, and so inspired and this and that. And
But once I get there and I realize how much hard work actually needs to be put into what I want to do, oh man, Jesus, it becomes a different story. Then I'd rather sit home and use and sit home and watch sports and sit home and do nothing. I'd rather do nothing than actually apply myself, which kind of also speaks to how much fear I have. I didn't realize how much fear I have until I got into recovery, because looking back at my life, there's so many things that I would rather not try, because in my head, I've already failed at them. I've already disappointed the people that I'm going to disappoint. I've already let down everyone. So why even do it? And that kind of speaks to the things that I've not tried in my life and not done. And anyway, moved to Joburg. Like I said, very inspired, very ready, went for job interviews, got 1 or 2 offers. Then I realized how much work had to be put in to do these things. And, instead of doing what normal people do, which is phone the people or let them know that I'm coming in, I'd rather just jeopardize it and, not go there at all and not say anything, which kind of spoils my opportunities for the future. And, and that's exactly what I did. I'd rather not pitch up, not say anything, because for me that was too scary or too difficult or too whatever it was at the time. And in Joburg, mind you, in Joburg I had no money because obviously I wasn't working. So using and picking up and drinking and all that kind of stuff was all on my sister. My sister is normal, which is something I could never fathom. We come from the same parents. Yet she's able to follow the rules to the T, and and I'm the complete opposite. She's able to buy a bottle of wine, drink a glass, and put it away. I'm not. I need to drink it finished, and then go get more. And once that more is done, go get more. I have to drink till I fall asleep, kind of thing. And a lot of my using depended on my sister. And after a year and a half, 2 years of that, my sister was sick of me, kind of being a couch potato and doing nothing, and always fucking things up and always being in a mess. I remember a moment in Joburg where I was sick for 3 days after a bender, and when I say sick, I mean like physically ill. I was hugging the toilet for like a day and a half. I couldn't keep anything down for the next day and a half. I started to realize how my using was starting to damage my health. And in all of this, my memory was going. That was another big thing for me. I couldn't remember anything. There'd be nights I'd go out. Even on nights I'd try to behave myself, with 2 or 3 beers. When I wake up in the morning, I couldn't remember how I got there, how I got home, why the house was left open. And, that's when I started to realize, okay, I think I'm in a bad space here and something needs to be done about it. And I really didn't know what to do about it. And I think this is the moment where I was starting to take my step one. I was starting to realize how powerless I was over the things I was doing. Starting to realize how unmanageable my life was. It was just all falling apart. There's a story that the half hours want me to share. Okay, so this one weekend I went to a mate's house. We were going to watch UFC in the morning. And in those days, if you're going to watch UFC at 4 o'clock, the only logical thing to do is to stay awake until the fight card starts. And, and we did exactly that. And lots of drinking, lots of using. It was just a crazy night. Ended up watching the card, fell asleep. This was in Four Ways, mind you, in Santon and Joburg. Fell asleep. I had another mate of mine there. She had come over because she had a fight with her boyfriend or whatever the case might be there. And after the card, she wanted to go home and she didn't want to go home by herself. So I had this bright idea to go with her. And, the only reason I went with her is because she said she's got alcohol at her house and we could carry on the party. We could do exactly what we're doing here at her place. And I jumped in an Uber, went all the way to Haiti's, got there, and oh man, it was absolute chaos when I got there. Her and the boyfriend were at each other's throats. Got physical with them too, and I'm drunk and I'm doing my very best to stay out of the situation. I just helped myself to the liquor cabinet. I was pretty much there just to drink. Looking back, I was there just to drink and just to use. I didn't care what went on with them too. And anyway, he decides he's had enough of this. Packed his shit, left because he can't deal with her, and now she turns all her anger and animosity towards me. She starts cursing me out. Why don't I defend her and all this kind of stuff? And in all this chaos, she took my phone. She threw it in the pond that was there behind the house, and then she kicked me out of the house. Mind you, I'm in the middle of nowhere. No ways to get an Uber, no ways to get hold of my sister, no ways to do anything. And in my high drunken state, I was like, fuck it, I'll walk home. And I don't know if many of you have been to Joburg, but Harties is in a different province. Harties is in a different province. And, so very determined, now I'm angry at her, I'm angry at the world. Can't believe I made this decision. What's with me and making all these horrible decisions, questioning everything while I'm walking. And, the first half an hour of the walk wasn't that bad. Because I'm still kind of on it. I'm still very, very drunk and walking. An hour later, reality starts to set in. Like, holy shit, bro, you're fucking walking to 4 ways. Okay, 2 hours later, now I'm starting to get tired and the sun is setting, and it's starting to become a desperate situation now. And in all this walking, every time I get tired, the road between Joburg and Harties is a lot of bush and farms and all that kind of stuff. And every time I get tired, I like sneak into a bush and take a seat and take a little lie down, get up, recharge, carry on walking. And I did this for about 4 hours. Eventually realizing. Now, after these 4 hours, eventually realizing that this is not getting me anywhere. Now I'm starting to get desperate. The sun is setting. I came up on this chicken place, like a farm. I can't remember what it was called, but it's quite a popular one. And I just remember going to the security guard with my water bottle, being like, please, dude, just give me some water. And he got me some water. And I was like, please, can I use your phone? And he says he didn't have airtime. He pointed me to another guy. I went to him. And he let me use his phone. And all I remember, for some miracle, I was able to remember my sister's phone number, called her, and as soon as she answered, I just burst into tears. I just started crying, and I was like, oh my word, I can't believe I'm out here. Her name's Zenny. It's like, Zen, I'm so desperate, please come finish me. She's like, bro, where are you? She came out, she picked me up. She sort of gave me a lecture on the way home. You can't keep doing these sorts of things. What happens if I was out of town? You would have been fired, kind of deal. Anyway, got home, and the next morning I just remember waking up and saying, why am I like this? Why do I keep making decisions like this? And anyway, yes, and that's also like all these little things kind of led me to my step one. But yeah, anyway, my road to treatment quickly. I'll still have some time. Treatment. I remember being in Joburg, sitting on the lounge floor of my sister's place, and just absolutely broken. Just come out of a bender, not feeling great, hating my life, and phoning my dad and saying, Dad, I don't know what needs to change, but something needs to change. My dad was like, what's wrong? I was like, I have no idea what's wrong, but I just feel broken. And, sitting here now, I understand that that's when I was the most spiritually broken in my life. I had no higher power, no connection to people at this stage. I was isolating a lot, using a lot by myself, drinking by myself. I just had no connection to anything. And I think this is the moment where I was the most spiritually broken. And my dad said to me, just come home. All you need to do is just come home. We'll figure it out from here. And, after that phone call, I remember telling my sister that, I'm going to be heading home soon. And, this is the story. And, I took a drive down from Joburg to here in Kumaz with my cousin because he was visiting his mom, my aunt, my dad's sister. in Margate, and I remember getting home and just crying. My dad was like, "What do you need? Do we need to do anything for you?" And at the time, I had no answers to his questions. I just said to Dad, I just need to rest. I just need to get away. Get my head together. Find some sort of direction in terms of what I want to do and how I want to live the rest of my life. And I think a week or two went past. I remember my dad saying, "We're going to Wimpy with the family." Went to Wimpy with the family, and they chased me away from the table to talk about family issues that by this time I was not part of the family structure. Any family decisions that were being made had nothing to do with me, because I had chosen to isolate myself from my family. I've chosen not to be part of the family. And I was treated as such. And so they chased me away from the table. They had their discussion for an hour and a half, whatever the case might have been. And they called me back, sat at the table, and my dad said to me, "Do you want to go to rehab?" And without even thinking about it, I just said yes. Like I said, I knew something needed to change in my life. I didn't know what it was, but something needed to change. And if they said rehab was the answer, that's exactly what I was going to do. Rehab was where I was going. And the only reason I went to the treatment center I went to is because my dad stays in Umkomaas. And what a God moment that was, because I don't think I could have went to a better place. I remember going to the treatment center a week before I was actually meant to be there, because my dad wanted to scope out the place and see what it was about, and see the facilities and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think at that stage I knew what I was in for. I was kind of excited to be there. I was like, "Oh, this is a nice place to have a holiday. They have dogs. There's a swimming pool. It's nice and quiet here. This is exactly what I need, a nice quiet retreat." Anyway, went back home for a week, started prepping for the treatment center. At this stage, I wasn't using. I wasn't able to use because I wasn't able to get anywhere. I was stuck in my dad's place. My family was watching me like a hawk, anything, anywhere. If I left my room or stepped outside to have a smoke at the house, it was always, "Where you going and who you going with?" So, I kind of didn't pick up at that stage of my life. And for me, it was a godsend, because when I got to treatment a week later, I wasn't going through the withdrawals I was going through, 2 weeks before that or 3 weeks before that. I wasn't jittery. I had a little bit of fog lifted from my head, not too much. But I remember sitting that first day, very delusional about treatment, very, very delusional about what the things I was about to go through were, because I remember sitting with my current sponsor now. He was going through the rules and telling me what's what and this and whatnot. And the only thing I could think in my mind is, when do I get to watch sports? When's TV time? And when do I get to watch sports? And he's like, "Oh, no, you can ask us whenever you want to watch TV. That's no problem." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then we carried on, went through that. And for me, treatment was, it was tough having to face myself. It was tough having to connect to the damage I caused my family. But the one thing I told myself going into treatment was, just get on with it. Whatever happens, just get on with it. If you get told to do something, just get on with it. Mind you, this is not me telling you that I did treatment perfectly. I had a little bit of fight left in me. I had a lot of complaining left in me. I was able to do what I was told, but not without letting people around me know that I was very unhappy with what I'd been told to do. And for me, there's so many spiritual awakening moments in treatment. One of them was the play. I feel as if I was tricked into doing the play. I was told I was going to be the sound guy. A week later, I was asked to read a couple of lines to stand in for someone. 2 weeks later, they wrote a part in the play for me. And for that, I'm actually very grateful I was tricked into doing that, because I think for me, that's that's where I connected. After finishing my steps, that's where I connected to my step 12 about the power of carrying the messages. The play was a 60-minute play. We went around to a bunch of schools doing this play, just carrying the message. And I think that's where I realized how the importance of carrying the message, not what it does for other people, but what it can also do for me. At that point is when I realized how much I was starting to enjoy the program. I don't know, something started to shift after the play. I was brutally honest in my step 4 because I knew I needed to be. I didn't want to go back to treatment. That's something I don't want to do again. I don't want to have to go through those concerns and the no TV and the no cell phone. I don't want to go through that again. And if it means me being very honest in my step 4, so be it. Just get on with it. And that's exactly what I did. And doing step 5 with my sponsor, a lot of people say, it's a pink cloud afterwards. I didn't feel that. I felt even worse than I did doing my step 4. Because again, I started to really connect with the things I was doing and the people I was hurting, and starting to realize that all the blame that I put on other people had nothing to do with other people. I was the common denominator in every situation. So I was clearly the problem. And after doing that step 5, I wouldn't say I was at a low place, but I definitely wasn't feeling good about myself. And the only thing that made me feel some sort of hope was I now had the answers. I had the answers to why I was the way I was, why I was doing the things I was doing, and there was a way to get over for me to get over my guilt and shame that I'd been feeling, for all these years. And it was very simple. I love the saying that it's a simple program for complicated people, because for me the answers were simple, but to get to those things was so complicated in my head. And if there's one thing I've learned in recovery is that I can't solve problems in my head, because that's where they start, and that's where I make things worse for myself. So that's the one time I felt a lot of hope. I really wanted to apply myself more to the program, really wanted to get involved more and do more. So for me, finishing the steps and leaving treatment was another stage. I was looking forward to leaving treatment, not because for the external things, the TV and whatnot. It was a time for me to really apply what I'd learned. It was an exciting time for me to actually do better in my life than what I did before I came into treatment. And I was really looking forward to it. I'd agreed to halfway house before I thought about it. I remember my sponsor Reese at the time saying, I suggest you go to halfway house, blah blah blah, this and that. I was like, for sure, I'll definitely go to halfway house. And I left that little one-on-one that I had with him thinking to myself, what have I just done? I've just been 3 months in treatment now. I have to do a year and halfway. Like, I couldn't fathom that. And again, as for me, I think that was a God moment that I did that, because like agreeing to treatment without thinking about it and agreeing to halfway without thinking about it, it's been one of the greatest decisions that I've ever made. I've learned so much in halfway. I've learned what to do, what not to do. I've learned the reasons I use. I've learned how to keep myself from using. I've learned so much in treatment. I've made so many great connections. I've made so many great friends. And the saying that service keeps you clean is something that I try and remember every time I don't want to go do service. Every time I don't want to go do something, I try to remember that the reason why I have so much serenity and happiness and connection with my family and friends and all that kind of stuff is because I'm doing this. The moment I stop working my program is the second my life starts to deteriorate and I start to lose things and I start being in pain again. And, I try to remember to the best of my ability that moment of spiritual emptiness that I felt before coming into treatment, because that feeling sucked, man. I'll never ever forget that low point in my life. I always say to the people around me, I love a good war story because it reminds me exactly where I came from. It reminds me why I'm here, and it reminds me of what I'm trying to achieve by being here. I have my days where I wake up very alcoholic, if this, if that, don't want to get involved, don't want to go to work, don't want to get out of bed. You know, it's comfortable for me to just lie in bed and do nothing. But something that my dad always taught me is that no growth happens when you do nothing. No growth happens in your bed. You can't learn anything just by lying in bed. And I try to remember these things when times are hard, because recovery is tough. I say this to my mates all the time. When we're missing footy games because we have to go to a meeting, or we're missing that because we have to go to a meeting. Recovery is tough, but without this program, I don't get to enjoy life the way I'm enjoying it now. I don't get to be as happy internally as I am now. I always say to myself after work, I'd rather be physically tired than emotionally drained. I'd rather be able to share with the people around me what's going on for me, and have the problem and share it with other people, rather than keep it to myself and have that emotional weight on me. I've learned so much, and I just hope to do this for another day for the rest of my life. I just look forward to the rest of the journey. So thanks for letting me share.